Okay, so we got a Webasto here. We've had a coolant failure out of the exhaust pipe. We're going to disassemble this and see if we can locate the coolant failure. Main component, you can see on the right hand side the little coolant pump. There's some coolant coming out of the exhaust pipe there. Do not taste. We'll pop off the main cap where the electronics are protected. Inside here, we're going to have 3 separate connections, one for the coolant pump, one for the combustion air chamber, and the third one will be for your glow plug. Always a good idea. They all have the same indexing on the pins on the 2 small ones. We're going to mark them with paint. Before we disassemble, probably wipe off our dirt. Right? We don't want to paint the dirt. That will wear off. I think I changed my mind right about here. I'm going to go and wipe off one of the paint marks. Okay, now we're going to clean out the top of our Torx screws. Make sure we don't strip them out. And we'll go ahead and we'll remove the 4 Torx screws, and 1 in each corner. And this is going to expose our ECU, or our processing board. All right, and then we'll pop off the cap there. That'll have a seal in it that we want to make sure stays in it. And then we have 1 hold down bolt across here to stabilize the board. And we're going to pull that out, and it has a little metal bridge in there that kind of pushes down on a couple other components. Always good idea to use bins, keep everything separated. There's our board. Nice and clean, doesn't look like there's any burn marks on it. We have another gasket. Gotta get that out of there just so we don't lose it. And we're gonna move on to the next part of separation, which is the main case bolts. We'll probably get the coolant pump here out of our way as well. We got all those the 4 mount bolts out, and now we're just gonna separate the plumbing for the coolant pipe, just to make disassembly and reassembly a little bit easier. And we'll also want to test the coolant pump itself while we have it out, and inspect the hoses. And now we're going to separate our combustion air chamber and pull the fuel line out. Just be careful to pull the fuel line out, not to get too much stuff in it, just held in by a grommet. We'll have our gasket inside there. We're going to remove that for reassembly. We're going to put that component to the side as well. Clean that all up. And now we're going to move our combustion chamber itself. That's held in place with 4 Torx screws as well. And then I guess it's worthwhile mentioning too that you basically need 2 screwdrivers to disassemble and service this entire unit. last screw out of our way here, and you just pull straight up on that combustion chamber, and that is going to come all out as one assembly. You can see in there in specs, see if we have too much carbon buildup. Usually the mesh screen at the back where the fuel is atomized through is usually what the #1 problem with these things are. This one looked pretty good, but we're going to pull out the glow plug anyways as soon as we've gone this far. We'll give that a little clean, get rid of any of the carbon deposits on top of there to make sure that we're getting a good heat transfer when we do put it back into service. And we're going to always replace this combustion chamber gasket. They usually get really brittle from the heat damage. And then there will be 4 more screws, and we're going to undo these screws. And this is going to separate our outer combustion chamber mount and the heat exchanger itself. Once we get this off, you're going to be able to see that there's 2 little O-rings that connect the inlet pipes that run through both bodies. And what our speculation is that either through extreme cold or just too much heat damage, these O-rings they've either gone hard or they're a little bit undersized or brittle, and they're bypassing coolant into the actual combustion chamber, and then that would explain why we're getting it through there. Another issue could be we could have a cracked heat exchanger itself. Sometimes the holes will get plugged. You gotta use a little compressed air, help get that dirt out of there. And there we go. And we separate them, and there are our 2 suspect O-rings. And you can't see it much in the shot, but when I'm taking this apart, and I'm going to point it out here, you can see exactly the kind of the wet, gummy carbon there. That's going to be a telltale sign for me that was either the top one on that one or even the bottom one, I guess, could have started flooding it, but the coolant got in there, and that's why it's gummy. If the coolant wasn't bypassing right around those O-rings, and it was coming through the heat exchanger, I don't think I would have seen the gummy in the carbon buildup there. It would have been a lot harder and rock hard, like what came out of the inside of the combustion chamber. And then we're just going to pop off the cap. There's your combustion air fan, right? Before any of this goes back into service or back together, we're going to individually test each component through the board with our test harness and everything like that. So there you go. That's the inside of your Webasto 101. You're in my video. Not impressed, Greg. You're in my video, Greg.